If you believe everything you've heard around the latest Snapdragon-powered PCs, then you'll know that Windows laptops are finally good again. And since I've recently been enjoying using Windows again as my desktop PC, I was really looking forward to Windows having its Apple Silicon moment with finally making Windows laptops that compete with the power and efficiency of Apple's MacBook lineup. And unfortunately, I don't quite think it's Windows Apple Silicon moment yet, but we are getting very close. So for the last couple of weeks, I ditched my MacBook Pro for the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Edge. Now I know it's not a MacBook Air, but since upgrading from the MacBook Air to the MacBook Pro, I actually really missed the lightweight design of the Air. So I was really looking forward to see if the Galaxy Book is really as capable as everyone is saying in just regular day-to-day use, which for me is a mixture of web, email, video, messaging, video calls, documents, and just, general productivity stuff. No gaming, no intensive development or AI tools, just regular, old use stuff, which I think is the way that most people will use these devices. Speaking of which, the new Snapdragon chips power a huge number of brand new devices, and I was very close to buying either the Microsoft Surface for just the stunning quality of their hardware, or the Lenovo Yoga Slim for what I think might be the best value. But in the end, I was swayed by Samsung's offer to buy the Galaxy Book 4 Edge, plus get a free Galaxy Tab FE, plus £100 discount when pre-ordering. Also, viewers of this channel will know I'm a huge fan of the S24 Ultra, so just having a Samsung laptop also kind of made sense to me to stick within the Samsung ecosystem, so to speak. Now, all in all, that brought my purchase to £1,249, and if I could sell that tablet on, potentially reduce my purchase to a sub £1,000 purchase, which for a Windows laptop of that spec, I thought was a crazy good deal, and it works out to about a third cheaper than a comparable spec 15-inch MacBook Air. Now, in terms of the spec of the model I've settled on, it is the 13-inch Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Edge running Qualcomm's 12-core Snapdragon Elite X1E 8100, silly names, clocked in at 4012 megahertz. So this is the more powerful Elite version, but it's not the most powerful Elite one that you can buy currently. Now this one has 16 gig of memory, a 512 gig solid state disk, although you can of course increase those if you want more RAM or more storage, which obviously of course then bumps up the price a bit, but they are not priced at such a premium level than with any of the Apple MacBook lineup. Now this model is rated for 22 hours battery life, has a 14-inch glossy touch 120Hz OLED screen with two USB 4.0 ports, a HDMI 2.1, and a headphone jack. And the best thing of all is that this thing weighs just 1.16 kilograms. Now for comparison, a MacBook Air weighs 1.24 kilograms, and my new iPad Pro with its carry case comes in at a little bit less, 1.02 kilograms. They are just crazy light, crazy portable, and such an easy thing to just throw into a backpack and bring along with you when you're traveling. Absolutely love the portability-ness, is that a word? Portableness of the laptop. Yeah, absolutely love it. Now the other thing I love about this laptop is the screen. It is color accurate, and the contrast of the OLED technology just makes anything look stunning. Content looks great, even regular desktop apps look really nice. Now Samsung have also included anti-glare technology into their screen, which does a really great job of limiting glare and reflections. You can't really see much even in here in bright lighting environments. Now I actually scripted most of this video while sitting on the back of a boat in bright sunshine light, and I didn't have any issues whatsoever with reflections. But I would say that any apps in dark mode really get quite difficult to see in bright light, so just be sure you are in light mode and you should be fine. And also, the fact this is a touchscreen, as you'll see in this video, kind of ruins the screen as well, however awesome having an actual touchscreen actually is, mainly because I don't actually find the trackpad that great on the Galaxy Book 4. And it didn't take me long to just naturally switch to tapping on the screen to navigate my way around the apps. I'd actually say the touch for me is the primary input device on this laptop, and then for me, the trackpad only really gets used when I really have to, maybe for a bit more precision. It's also capable of multi-touch, so things like an actual tablet where you want to use Google Maps. Being able to quickly move around just by using 2 fingers makes it so much easier to use. So that is the hardware, but what about the actual experience of using this day to day? Well, first up, the challenge of installing all the ARM versions of all the apps that you want to use. Now, this wasn't as problematic as I first thought. Now, of my usual apps, literally the only ones I've had problems with so far is Google Drive, which there isn't a native ARM app and doesn't actually install anyway if you try the normal app. And one that does install but doesn't really work that well is Monday.com, which performs just really badly on these things. And to be clear here, as a non-techie Windows user, other than looking to download the ARM versions of an app, if one exists, you don't have to do anything else to get things to work. Now, that aside, all of the other apps I use, Discord, Slack, my to-do list TickTick, 1Password, my email client Missive, Beeper, my messaging app, all of these other apps have a native ARM version, or they work just fine in default compatibility mode. Now, in terms of all the Samsung stuff, which was one of the reasons for buying the Samsung Galaxy Book over any of the other Snapdragon models, it's actually a really seamless and pretty good experience. You can install and use a number of the Samsung apps, which then syncs things via your Samsung account from a phone or tablets. Quick Share works really well too. It's super fast, super convenient to transfer files to and from my S24 Ultra, which is one of the biggest pain points from many Apple laptop users with an Android phone, me included. You can also use a tablet as a second screen pretty seamlessly, just like you do with an iPad and a Mac. That's great. And using Phone Link, you can connect it to a compatible phone and get all of your phone notifications on your laptop, which is really nice. Now, it stops you from having to pick up your phone to check things. The only issue I have here is that I sometimes get notifications from both my phone and then the Windows app. So it can cause a bit of frustration when you tap on the wrong notification, which then opens the S24 mirroring app, which then needs you to unlock the phone, which if you've left in another room, you can't easily do. And especially if you just clicked on the Windows one in the first place, you would have been taken straight to the app. Now, that's something I would really like to see improved from the recent Apple announcements with their screen mirroring app. It just lets you access and control your iPhone, even though your phone is actually locked. But overall, I would say if you are a heavy Samsung user, then that's another big plus going towards the Galaxy Book 4 Edge. Although it is an interesting point. I've always been super critical of Apple and their whole ecosystem thing, locking people in. But yeah, here we are with Samsung building out their own ecosystem and still doing great things with it, but still an ecosystem where you kind of have to buy the Samsung laptop, the tablet, the phone, and Samsung Buds to get all the similar features to Apple's ecosystem. Albeit, of course, with the benefits of being a more open ecosystem and without some of those price gouging things that Apple obviously often does. Speaking of ecosystems, Aqara have their own open ecosystem of smart home products and kindly agreed to sponsor today's video with a brand new, really excited for this, U200 smart lock. And this is one that I have personally been waiting for and really excited to use. This is the U200 and it's a Matter-enabled smart lock that you can retrofit to your doors. And like many smart locks, you get things like the ability to get into your house key-free. You can also give others temporary access to your house. And then you can use a code, a fingerprint. You can even still use a physical key if you really want to, or maybe your wife doesn't do tech and you need, a physical key still for her. And I think this is a first ever here in the UK, a smart lock that works on most of our front doors that supports Apple's home key function, which allows you to just tap your watch or your phone, assuming you have an Apple one, which I don't anymore, to unlock your front door. Now, the biggest thing for me, aside from having home key support, is that being Matter enabled, I can add this lock to multiple smart home systems, Apple Home, Google Home, Home Assistants, and I can control and see the lock status across all of those apps, which as someone who is in limbo between, my wife who's using an iPhone still and myself using the S24 Ultra, is a huge bonus. Now you can pick one of these up using the link down below. And once again, huge thank you for Aqara for sponsoring this portion of the video. Now, the exception to the rule here though, with the Galaxy Book 4 Edge, for sure, is gaming. Now I don't really buy a laptop like this, not super portable for gaming, but just spend 30 seconds looking around online and you'll quickly find that most games either perform really poorly or just not work at all. So the Snapdragon-powered laptops right now are definitely in a place of being ideally suited to those wanting to use them for productivity over gaming. Until that is, the games companies can ship with updated ARM support, which I'd like to think, based on my experience so far with the Snapdragon-powered laptop, is something that should be at the top of everyone's priority list right now, unless like Intel comes out with going back to x86 and 64 somehow, but I just can't see it right now. Because the speed and overall performance of this machine is pretty damn good. Now, I haven't benchmarked this against Apple's MacBook Airs or my MacBook Pro. I don't do any form of like intensive tasks like video editing. I've done some light photo editing and haven't had any issues with this. Now, the way I've always used my Mac, I probably have like 20 tabs open at one time and about, probably all of those apps mentioned earlier all at once, and I just hop in and out of each one when I need to. So bringing that same approach to working on my Galaxy Book has delivered practically the same results. It's fast, I haven't noticed any slowdowns when working inside of any apps, and to top it off, it is quiet. Again, something I can finally love about Windows laptops again. I have sat in my garden and used this in 30-degree heat, which is as good as us Brits get here in the UK. And yes, it got warm, but not uncomfortably warm, and still performed just fine. Again, no noticeable slowdowns or any issues at all. With that said, there are some areas which frustrate me with this. And I will caveat that this is my current first and only Snapdragon-powered laptop. I don't have others to compare this to. The first thing is how quickly this machine starts up. It is so sketchy at how fast this machine actually does boot up. Now, I was really surprised when I listened to a Linus Tech Tips podcast recently, where he said the one clear advantage the new Snapdragon laptops have are how quickly they can wake from sleep. And I'm just not seeing that, like, at all. Now, sure, if I use it, close the lid, then come back to it in 10 or 20 minutes time, then it does instantly wake up, which is nice. But anything longer than that, or from a cold boot, and it just doesn't feel like it's working properly. I hit the power button maybe once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times, and then I'll get the Samsung Knox logos, and it will sit there for what feels like 20, maybe 30 seconds, then it goes black, and then we'll get the Windows login screen. From which point, I will be clear, there are no issues from there. It is just that like initial boot up sequence. Now, I've had a look through the settings to see if there's a Samsung Knox boot encryption system setting that might be slowing things down, but there is nothing I can see here. Okay, so just a quick thing here. The booting issues seems to have been fixed in recent updates. I've not run into the issue in the last day or two, so this might no longer be a thing, but I still wanted to leave this in the video just in case it came back again for any reason at all. Now, I've also been having some pretty significant challenges with reaching anywhere near the advertised battery life, which I think is one of the main key selling points of these new Snapdragon-powered laptops. Now, interestingly, it does state an expected 22 hours battery life for video, but in my own general use case, I'm getting a realistic 4 hours, or roughly speaking, of battery life, which is what, a fifth of what's advertised. Now, I've also confirmed this with a few other tech creators who have other models of Snapdragon laptops, and they are all reporting the same thing. And actually, that also includes the fact that these Snapdragon-powered laptops seem to drain around like 10% of battery life every hour of just being idle with the screen on. So after taking this away with me to a conference, then using it over the past couple of weeks to run my business, script these videos, and keep on top of like all my emails and YouTube stuff and all this kind of businessy stuff, I've always had to be sure I fully charged it every single night. And then coming from a MacBook Air and a MacBook Pro, that's not really something I ever had to worry about whatsoever. Also, I'm going to pause the script here quickly. There was a guy, I think he was like a .NET developer or a Windows Snapdragon ARM developer, who was talking about battery life on Twitter, and I actually looked at his tweet because he was saying how great the performance was, and he's worked on it over multiple days, and he's opened and closed it and used it. But the screenshot he shared showed that he still only had about 4 hours of battery screen on time, and he had like 20-something% of battery life left. So again, nowhere near the claimed or advertised like 20+ hours of battery life from any of the Snapdragon machines. So really am dubious about their kind of claims of like incredible performance with these kind of things. Now back to the Snapdragon laptop, I was also using it last night and the battery was getting low and I kept checking like 10%, 7%, 5%, 3%, and I think I had 7 minutes remaining, and as I literally clicked on the battery to see that it said 7 minutes remaining, the whole thing just switched off. And what I have noticed here is that Windows will widely vary the estimated battery life. As you can see here, whilst I was on the train yesterday, I kept having to pull my phone out to record as Windows estimated like from 4 hours to 16 hours and then 8 hours. It is literally all over the place. And I wasn't doing anything on it, again, other than having all of those same apps open with just some light use of jumping between them. Now, I don't want this to turn into a negative review because this is a really great laptop. Like, it's definitely one of the best, if not the best Windows laptop I've ever used. Like, it's fast, light, quiet, But, we all love a big but my first experience of using the webcam for a video call resulted in me just being silhouetted against the background. And admittedly, I was in harsh kind of lighting conditions. I had a very bright background behind me, but literally everything else I've ever used has never responded so poorly in that kind of situation. So if you are making video calls in challenging lighting conditions, it does really struggle. But the webcam, video and the audio quality is head over heels much better than the Intel laptops I've used before, so there is at least that. Also, the speakers are also like really bad, and they don't sound anywhere near like as full and as bassy. Unfortunately, I have to compare it, but to like the first generation, like M1 MacBook Airs, Apple just really has nailed getting really good sound from ultra thin devices. Now, the other thing I was genuinely excited to use was the new Copilot that ships with every Copilot Snapdragon-powered laptop. And unfortunately, that also left me pretty disappointed. Now, caveat here, I'm not someone who's really been like reading up on what Microsoft Copilot is capable of. Now, I do use ChatGPT almost daily. I've used Google Gemini as well. So I had a certain level of expectations set when trying Copilot for the first time, especially with that dedicated button now on the keyboard. Now, right now, when you tap that dedicated Copilot button, it launches what is essentially a web-based app with no access to your local system. So it is great for asking it how tall your favorite actor is, grabbing the latest weather reports, crunching some data that you give to it. But beyond that, apps like ChatGPT are still way more advanced. Like, you can't upload files to it. It can't see what files or documents are in specific folders. It can't interact with your apps whatsoever, which seems kind of useless to me. But there is a reason for that, which I'm going to explain in just a second, and I am looking forward to when it does get that level of access. Now, for me, they are just being very cautious about what level of access it has to your data. It's this whole thing around security that kind of came as a knee-jerk reaction after they showed off as a brand new feature called Recall, which essentially takes screenshots of what you are doing on your machine every 10 seconds or so. So when you ask the Copilot AI, where did I save that file? Or which website did I visit that talked about whatever it was, it can then scroll back through those screenshots and find the answer for you. Great idea in principle, but also very dangerous if that screenshot data does get into the wrong hands. Like privacy, also using disappearing messages in WhatsApp, well, now that screenshot of the message is stored forever. Bank details, passwords, everything you bring up on your screen stored as a screenshot, which doesn't really help when early versions of Copilot showed that those screenshots were being stored in plain text on your C drive on your machine, and it's already been exploited by people online. Which is why Microsoft have now backtracked or recalled the recall feature on this feature to make sure that it's a feature, I've said feature too many times now, that doesn't start like a whole generation of hackers gaining access to this goldmine, like literal goldmine of information. So, the Snapdragon Elite powered Samsung laptop, is it good? Yes, I would definitely say it is good. It's probably the nicest Windows laptop I've used so far. Should you buy one? I think yes, only if you want a super light, portable, and a powerful laptop for like general productivity stuff. So generally speaking, for most people, this is a killer laptop. But the battery life still falls short for me. And actually, a few days ago, I cancelled my eBay listing for the Galaxy Tab FE, as I've decided to unfortunately send this machine back to Samsung. Now, I was really hoping this was the one, but I think I'm gonna give it maybe another 6 months or so and then see just like the lay of the land and dive back in. Maybe I'll try a Surface Pro or the Lenovo model then instead, which brings me to one of the most frustrating issues of being a Samsung customer. Now, I went to initiate the return of this laptop on Samsung online store here in the UK, and I was met with a message that says, if I use the product, then it will deduct a minimum of 20% from my refund, which as far as I'm aware here in the UK, is illegal, especially since I'm returning it due to not performing as advertised. Like clearly 20 plus hours of battery life down to like 4. Now, I also saw someone here on Twitter try to return a damaged product, and they were trying to charge him, it was like £50, even though it was delivered to him damaged. So he was just wanting to return it to get a replacement. Like, however much I love Samsung products, honestly, their phones, incredible. Their ultra-wide monitors, I've bought pretty much every single one of them. Their TVs, I've got a 77-inch S95D right next to me, incredible TV. That sort of customer service really, really does leave a bad taste in the mouth. And so while Samsung may now be catching up with Apple in performance, one area where they can't compete currently is customer support. And I'm sure this won't do me any favors with Samsung, who I actually have quite a good relationship with. You really need to do better here. Quick one. So I did actually get a full refund from Samsung. They didn't deduct any fees. There was no like delays and anything. Literally sent the thing back, and like the next day I had the refund. So I'm not sure what's going on with their like default policy of like, we're going to take 20% away, but then they don't, and then they refund you anyway. But yeah, I'm going to keep this in here just so that I can point out the fact that they are telling people they're going to deduct like 20% off anyway, just in case they do try and charge some people. So there you go. And kind of given what I'm hearing from the wider tech community, personally, I would probably recommend just holding off for a little bit longer before picking one of these up. Now, there's no doubt that they are, fast, quiet, lightweight, something we've been after for like the longest time with Windows machines. But for me, the efficiency just isn't there yet. But in the meantime, why not go and check out a product that I do wholeheartedly love this year, and that is my 3-month review of the S24 Ultra, and I'll see you there. Cheers, bye-bye.